Hey everyone, and welcome back to Bottomless Coffee Podcast. I'm Jerome Evans at Jerome T. Evans online, and today we are talking with the best-selling author, former stand-up comic, but still funny, and co-owner of Chicago's Broadway Antique Market, Duane Cerny. How are you, Duane?
I am good, Jerome. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, it's a total pleasure. Um, and I think it's fair to say that you can learn a lot about someone or tell a lot about someone based on the books they've written. So I want to get to this best-selling book, Selling Dead People's Things is the title. And I've got some questions about that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the number 9 on my phone and then the number 1. And depending on what you tell me about selling dead people's things, I may or may not hit that next one.
Just tune off completely.
Okay.
All right, I've been forewarned.
Right. Tell me about your book.
Um, so, Selling Dead People's Things actually came out, wow, it's going on like 4 years now. And I wouldn't be doing wonderful shows like this if it wasn't still selling. It's the strangest thing.
Nice.
So, I've written a lot of things over the years, had a couple plays produced and short stories published and poems and nothing that really, let's be honest, hit.
Okay. Sure. Sure.
Hit. And I'm not talking about really making money either, because nobody's making money in most of these things. But as far as popularity,
Hmm.
yeah. And I kind of stumbled on it because I I realized that I never wrote about what I do, and I also realized about myself I'm not good at just like making stuff up.
Okay.
Characters and storylines and things like that. I'm not good at that. Just not good at that. But I would stumble upon real stories, real situations, and I
Yeah.
would make notes. And I kind of came to the conclusion that I'm a good storyteller when it's someone else's story.
Okay. Sure.
And sometimes that person isn't alive anymore, or, well, let's say they don't have the ability to relate the story.
Yeah.
Um, or it's a story that I was told many years ago and now I can tell.
Fair.
Which kind of goes into the second book, which is called Vintage Confidential. We could talk about that later.
I'd
So
love to.
a bit more of a gossipy thing.
I
Um,
love gossip, Duane.
yeah, well, yeah. Well, here's the thing. So the first book, and if you've seen the covers, they're intriguing, if nothing else. And Selling Dead
Hmm.
People's Things is a very disturbing cover. However, I actually licensed the image from a woman who's a seller on Etsy, and
Oh, okay.
uh, Beat Up Creations. We'll give her a plug. Beat Up Creations. I mean, and that image, that disturbing image, cover image, was actually on a set of dishes. She had a
No.
yes. You can
So
go look
you you eat your food and you uncover this image as you.
to the bottom of the bowl, and then and my production people and editors and all was like, oh, we're like, no, 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 no. They were all giving me different covers, and everything looked like a Martha Stewart cookbook to me.
Oh, sure.
And I'm like, oh,
Sure.
this is my first book. I'm, 63 years old. I'm hardly an overnight sensation. And I said, I just want, what I want. And I think that's actually a good way to look at things in life. I want it because I want it. I want to do it this way because I want to do it this way. And we'll just see what happens. So, and so the book is a bit of a memoir, and intertwined,
Okay.
threaded through are other people's stories, and all true stories. This particular book has a paranormal bent to it, hence the
Ooh.
cover, and is a way for me to go and tell a couple of really good ghost stories. And again, they're things that I've stumbled upon. So not there's a couple things that are my personal experiences, but then it's set in just the real world of vintage. So it's, as one of the reviews had said, it's not a how-to. This is not
Oh, good.
how to. This is not how to sell on eBay or Etsy, or how I made millions selling sad irons on Instagram, as I like to say.
Yeah.
It's not that. I don't. It's not about money. It's not about money. It's about people and things and history. Very much a Chicago book. I'm proud to say the Advocate named it one of the top 20 LGBTQ memoirs of the year, next to John
Amazing.
Waters. And boy, was I happy about
Really?
that. about as close as I'm going to get to John Waters. So it's a very hard, because it is a memoir of, my years in the business, kind of stopping about 2000, something like that. So that in a nutshell.
Let me ask you, Duane. Let me ask you. You mentioned writing in the past and it not being very popular, but you kept writing anyway. So what was it that made you really want to be a writer?
I want to be a writer when I was a kid. I would write stories. I wrote a novel when I was 16 that I twisted my father's arm to read, and I think he just thought it was so weird that I did that. And of course, I typed it.
Oh,
So, pretty much first draft, Dad. Here you go. Um,
awesome.
I went to college on a poetry scholarship. Again, I really don't know how that happened. It's just I submitted things and it hit. And Gwendolyn Brooks awarded it to me. So we're like, wow. And I kind of didn't even get that at the time, like what a big deal that was. And that was like when I was 21. So,
Yeah,
you just keep throwing the uh, literary spaghetti at the wall, right? And see
absolutely.
what sticks. So I always wanted to, but I'd say making a living and it just kind of got in the way, as it
Sure.
often does. And so I was a paralegal for 8 or 10 years, and then you're not writing, you're reviewing someone's a will or estate planning, or I was going to say reviewing someone's briefs. I almost said that. That's not what I was doing. But so, but I wasn't writing what I really wanted to write, because I didn't know what kind of a writer I was.
Well, okay. So you've got the two books. I want to explore selling dead people's things just a little bit more because you mentioned this phrase on your website, and I quote, I think, the revelation of too many startling stories to tell in a single night of vintage debauchery, which is somewhat poetic in its lyricism, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Would you be willing to share a story from this first book,
Sure.
or even one that didn't make it into the book, if that would be better?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's do the first book. I was thinking you might ask me that, and I'm like, hmm. I'm going to start with this and say many of my stories, if there really exists one, has an O. Henry type ending. I love
Oh,
that type of writing. So,
what's an O. Henry type ending?
uh, 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 an ironic surprise
Oh, okay.
that you get there and you went, oh yeah, well, oh Henry, but sorry, making myself laugh here.
That's
Um,
okay.
if in fact there's that genesis of the story, and I can find it. And then some stories have like multiple surprises. So I'll tell you this. Um, uh, there's a character whose name is High Roth, and he was an American cartoonist and illustrator. He worked for the very early, he began with Hugh Hefner in the early days of Playboy. Very much kind of in a Gahan Wilson kind of way. Um, uh, funny guy. And I met him. I was working in an antique store, and I was reading a book called Little People, and it
Okay.
was all about little people, the history of little people. I'm reading the book, and this guy comes in, and he's buying a picture of, I saying a politically incorrect, but he was buying a picture of a midget, a
Okay.
CDV. Um, and now we don't say that; we say little people. But
Hmm.
and I'm going like, well, wow, what are the odds of that? I'm reading a book about that, and this guy's buying it, and he writes a check, and it's high rock.
No, it's not.
Yeah, yeah, of course it is, because he collects little people pictures.
Sure, sure.
Wait a minute. And as I run and I get the book, he's thrilled that I have the book. I mean, a complete
Yes.
mismatch. So right there, that's kind of an O. Henry. We have these moments in our life that come along, right? So he signs it, and he gives me his phone number, and he said, we should hang out sometime, And he
Oh,
said, we could go junkie, right?
okay.
Well, of course I'm going to do that. Why would I
Yes.
not do that, right? And I'm a little person. I'm a little person, but I'm 5'6", and he
Okay.
was about 5'4", 5'3", and 20 years older, but full of energy, and stories. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so we would go out on these excursions I'm in Chicago, and it would be into we'd go to Iowa, we'd drive to Wisconsin, we go to Southern Illinois. And then he goes and he says, we've got to go to Tipton, Indiana.
Oh.
And hi, why do we have to go? Shut up and drive.
Okay.
This guy. You ask too many questions. I need coffee. It would be that. So, and honestly, I don't think he listened to half the things I ever said, which doesn't really matter,
Sure.
because he has great stories. Example: when he worked for Hugh Hefner, Hugh Hefner wanted to pay everybody in stock, right? And he's a young guy. He's got a wife and a baby, and he goes, "I can't pay my mortgage in stock.
Yeah.
I need money. What are you talking about?" He goes, "Like this magazine's going to go anywhere." Hello.
Hello. Right.
Side story, which I'll do a lot of those. We go to Tipton, Indiana, and there is an old hardware store. And Tipton, Indiana is basically a stop sign. I mean, I doubt there's too much more there. But it's a big old hardware store, wooden barn-like structure. And he goes, "This hardware store is going out of business." And I said, "I doubt there's going to be anything here for me to buy. I sell mid-century modern and 50s stuff." And so he goes, No. He says, You'll see. Sure. So we go into the store. It's all new stuff on the first floor. A very nice lady sitting behind the cash register. And he goes, "We're here for the basement." And we go down to the basement. The entire basement is tricked out as old Wild West town.
What?
As soon as you get
what?
The floor, you're on as if think of any old cowboy movie you want.
Oh my gosh!
And you're walking on those wooden planks, and then are all these facades of storefronts. So a general store, a barber.
In the basement?
In the basement. This was 5,000 square feet that was built out like this. Yes.
In just the middle of nowhere.
Middle of nowhere.
For who? What?
This was this guy's dream, but actually it was very smart because he knew that people would come from all around with their kids, and they'd spend more time upstairs shopping in the hardware store if the kids could play downstairs. It was still very adult in that. Well, there was nothing sharp in the barber shop, but there was a barber shop. There was a funeral home that had these black curtains that were closed. You couldn't get in there. Right? There was a candy store, and there was free candy in the apothecary jars.
Gotcha.
It was actually, I'm going to go like this. There was an intersection of where the streets met. So I just try to describe it, I described it better in the book, I think, but it was very much like Disneyland meets the West Village meets a ghost town.
I love that.
Right?
Oh my God.
And I love fake. I love facades. I love false. But I love it when I can tell something truthful about it, right? And so I'm like, this is incredible. And he goes, "We're not here for any of this stuff. We're here for the back. Yeah, we're here for the back room." Like, wait, there's more.
The back room of the basement. Okay.
Yeah, there's a back room. Well, going at this place has to end somewhere.
Seriously.
Right? Oh yeah. Then there was just these black curtains at one side, just a little doorway, right? And I'm going, is this where the sheriff comes out? I'm expecting there to be characters or something down here. And he pulls us aside, and it's just dark as can be. And there is a collection of sideshow taxidermy animals. Which are unbelievable and really well kept. And
wow.
So 2-headed calves, 6-legged, double-bodied lambs, 2-headed turtles, all kinds of things floating in from jars of formaldehyde. And it would turn out that this old guy bought all this stuff out west from like a dime museum.
Okay.
They'd have these roadside things in the 50s, right? And he had said, "Oh, there's radiation," and then it screwed up the, reproduction of these animals, and then you end up with these freaky animals. And I always like to say, sideshow animals were like really taken care of and fed well, because people would say a quarter to see a live animal and a nickel to see a dead one.
Oh,
so people say animal abuse, freak animals got the best of care. However, this is now 40 years later, these things are taxidermied and sitting in the basement in Tipton, Indiana. And I bought them all. So
Oh, waiting for you.
they're waiting for me. So, and this collection changed my life. And I'll go back to this, like another O. Henry thing.
Yeah.
So I get the collection. People could read the book about how I even acquired it. That's a whole other thing right there. Um, so I acquire the collection, and I'm going like, what am I going to do with these things? Um, and I decided that on, an, on, a, on an Easter Sunday, we set up a dining room set in the store with china and silverware and glassware and
Oh
napkins and
my
the whole thing,
gosh.
and sit right in the middle of it, the double-bodied lamb.
On
Uh,
Easter, the
on Easter,
double-bodied lamb.
right? Right. And what I think is funny, it's like now, you talk to marketing people and they're all about if they go to a store, they want an experience. Well, let me tell
Oh.
you, I was given an experience many years ago. It's not always good. I had There were at least three people came in that either passed out or threw up. Yeah, and this is at a lovely Sunday afternoon, and I've like horrified people.
Whoops.
Um, my business partner says, we're going to get sued. So after the first hour, the lambs went out. I've never shown them again. I've let people photograph them for things and art projects and that, but I've never taken them out again. The next, you're going to be sorry you asked this. So
Oh,
we go to
go ahead.
So on Halloween, the next Halloween, I thought, got these two-headed cow. That'd be great. Nobody's going to be passing out or throwing up if I put him in the
Okay.
Halloween window. So I put it in
Sure.
the Halloween window, and I get all these goofy phone calls from people who are wanting to rent it, and I don't want to rent it. I don't want to sell it. And at the end, so I was getting very fed up with that. So at the end of the day, the phone rings, and this guy says, "I was having dinner across the street, and I want to rent. And I'm in town working on a project, and I want to rent your cows." And I said, I'm not renting them." And he
Yeah.
goes, "You don't understand. I'm Oliver Stone."
Oh, you don't understand.
And I said, "Sure you are, buddy." And I hung up on him. The next day, where's the end of this story? A woman calls me up and said, "Oliver Stone called the story yesterday, and someone hung up on him. Would that be you?"
Ooh.
Yes, yes. And she says he's very annoyed, but he still wants the cows. How much for a week? And I rented them, and so they're in the 25th anniversary edition of Natural Born Killers.
Oh my
And the
gosh.
cameras were put behind their heads in a forest, so you could get the cow's perspective of the forest. Hey, I didn't write the screenplay,
Right. Right.
but I took the money, and the thing is, after that, I started propping movies. I did Oprah
Oh.
Winfrey's Brewster Place, which is a zillion years ago. I've probably done 200 films easily with my staff and commercials and on and on and on. It opened up a whole prop business for me.
Oh, fascinating. I didn't know you had a prop business.
Yeah.
I
So,
only knew about Broadway Antique Market,
mhm,
which I think we should explore a little bit
sure.
after a quick coffee break. Be right back. Okay, welcome back, everyone, to Bottomless Coffee Podcast. I'm here with Duane Cerny, who just told us a story from his best-selling book, Selling Dead People's Things. And I think what we're going to do is put a link to the book in the description of the podcast. So you can click on that link and you can get a picture of this cover, which is fantastic, and then order a copy if you want. But Duane also has another book that I'm not as familiar with called Vintage Confidential. So you might be ordering two books. Unsure. Can you tell us a little bit about Vintage Confidential, Duane?
Yeah. So I definitely didn't want to do more selling dead people. Selling more. A lot of people asked, and I thought it's very sweet, really lovely. But it's so not my personality because I kind of get bored with things, and I wanted to do
Oh.
something else. But I'm like, what? It should be another book, but I also don't want to disappoint people who really like the first one, which, by the way,
Mhm.
was made. It hit Amazon's antique collectible #1. It hit it 3 times, USA and Canada, three
Oh,
times.
is it like
So
every October people are just shopping by the
no, that
cover?
actually helped. But
Yeah.
one was from being on a podcast in
Oh,
out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and it blew up. And another one was one of the, there's a lot of mid-century modern groups, things like that on the internet.
yeah.
And a group kind of got a hold of it, and there's like 60,000 people in the group, but not they didn't all buy it, but enough of them did, and it ran up
Oh,
the numbers.
good for
You know,
you.
and it's now an audiobook. Yay!
Hey.
Yay! But Vintage Confidential.
Oh,
So I thought,
ooh,
you
ooh,
know what?
ooh. Hold on. Do you read the book yourself?
I read the book,
Oh,
and
awesome.
I thank you, and I found this fantastic actress. People were sending me little clips. I just loved her voice. I loved
Oh,
her.
good.
She got me. I got her. So she reads the blurbs. I am very blessed in having some incredible blurbs from
Okay.
amazing people. So she reads the blurbs. So I have to deal with that.
Credit to where credit is
We
due.
actually did a commercial for the next book, which is good segue, Jerome.
Solid.
Vintage Confidential. We've rounded the square.
I love it. You take it over from here.
Well, so I thought, well, but people, so it's not but nope. There's one oddly paranormal story if you want to interpret it that way.
Okay.
So because I got to give them something because
Sure.
they're really going to be disappointed. Um, but I wanted to do a different book, and I had keeping my little notepad here of
Yeah.
the sales that I was in, and then experiences, and there were a number of them that were kind of sexy, and
Oh,
yeah, which should be surprising. So, but then I thought, you think about antiques, you don't necessarily immediately go into like, haunted dolls and all that stuff. I mean, you might. It's
sure.
related. It's related. But I'm thinking, you think about vintage, you think about sexy, right?
You can old
You
timey
can't,
like Mae
right?
West kind
Well,
of.
oh well. How about Mad Men?
True.
Right? I mean, you
Scandalous.
watched it for the clothes and the furniture and the clothes
Yeah.
that came off when they were on the furniture.
Great Gatsby
Yeah,
vibes.
yeah,
Sure.
yeah. So there's this kind of tie in there, and so I thought, well, maybe that's not so far out. So I continue with the bit of the quasi uh, memoir element of it, and telling some
Okay.
personal stories of mine.
The more
As
debaucherous personal
in my
stories, I
yes, my
assume.
debaucherous ways that I felt comfortable with, and some of the people that I've um, uh, been friends with, and people that I've really respected. In the last book, there was a story called "The Death of Jacob Marley," and Jacob Marley was an actual wasn't we know what Jacob Marley is,
Hmm.
um, but in Chicago, it was a fairly long running antique store,
Oh,
and that the proprietor was, of course, Mr. Marley. But Mr. Marley was never there. It was actually this guy called Tom Naniscus who never mentioned his name to anybody. Well,
okay.
he's very generous, right? But he was the great Barnum. He just presented all this stuff in his store,
Hmm.
and I was so intrigued by that. And unfortunately, he's no longer with us. But it was so artful in how he lived, and presented these objects, and he had all these celebrity clientele. Oh my gosh, the limousines would pull up in front of this place. He had a
Wow.
store next to me. Um, I mention this now because in Vintage Confidential, I write about a friend of mine whose name is Raymond Hudd, and
Okay.
Raymond Hudd was a very um, prominent haberdasher,
Oh,
and there have been museum shows on his hats. Uh, um, Again, he would sell to celebrities. He had a store, if you're familiar with Chicago, but on Oak Street, which is Oak in Michigan, which is the best address. He had a store when he was like 24 years old
wow.
making hats,
Must be some
right?
fabulous hats.
And he's this little farm boy whose first hats were for donkeys.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah, not the heads, not going there. That's not it. But that's what I found out about. Anyway,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
meet him when he's well into his 60s, and he
Mm,
would buy things from me. that's how I met him. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's Raymond Hutt. I'm
Yeah.
just really, of course, I'm impressed. Um, and we started this friendship, and he would say, I want to do an Eiffel Tower hat. So I need all these vintage Eiffel Towers, but they have to be early plastic. I don't want metal because the metal's too heavy, and I don't want new, and I don't want large. La 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 la
Oh
la
my
la la, la,
gosh. Okay.
right? Because he's an artist, and he would make these hats. Raymond Hutt is also famous, and so it's great to participate in helping him make a hat,
Yeah.
right? So I got to. I don't know where that hat went, but people should Google Raymond Hutt, and he would
Yes.
make these news hats. So before your time, but there was the Tylenol killings when someone was
Oh,
tampering. If
that's
you've
why
ever
we
heard,
have the little.
that's why you have security. Exactly, exactly.
Yes.
Raymond Hutt at that time, in conjunction with it, basically,
Hmm.
did a Tylenol hat. He
Unexpected.
he did an Iran Contra hat. He called these news hats.
Okay.
And
Well, where does the sexy part happen?
where's the sexy part happen? Well,
We're at Tylenol.
he was very he was very flirtatious, and it was
Oh.
certainly one of these. If I was a little, because I was younger, if I was younger, if I was older and he was a little younger, I think yeah. So there was that.
Sparks would have flown.
Yeah, and it was kind of like, what are we going to do with this? And he'd be like, I'm just kind of too old, and I didn't want to agree with him because now I'm pretty much his age. So yeah, because he was an older gay man.
Yeah.
Who, but again, like his life is his art, and that's sexy,
Agreed. It's
right?
romantic. It's
I'm just very attracted to that,
yeah.
and I so respect. I mean, again, when someone comes from nothing, from this little farm town, and I once asked him why he never moved to New York, and he
Mm.
says, "Oh, I'd rather be a big fish in a small pond."
Oh, little old Chicago, huh?
Right, right, right. But then again, so the chapter is actually about myself, him, terrible, I'm doing it in this order, and Phyllis Diller.
Oh,
Um,
you
so,
buried
so,
you buried the lead with Phyllis Diller.
so Phyllis Diller makes quite the appearance
Okay.
in the
Okay.
book. So, admittedly, not the sexiest story, but it's more of a love story in that we've all had that, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think just thinking about gay culture for a little bit, that's not that kind of like respect attraction. You don't
hmm
really see that in the marketing on Instagram or
oh,
Snapchat or what have
yeah,
you.
good point.
It's not it's not like distinguished gentleman who's really good at his job and takes care of his local community meets slightly younger homosexual, and instead of having sex they enter into a mentor mentee relationship that lasts their entire lives. Roll the credits.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or swipe.
Right, right.
Uh, I was in that, and I'm not flattering myself on this. I'm just saying, I also respect him. He didn't hit on me.
Mm.
He didn't.
Hmm.
That wasn't.
Hmm.
Yeah, and he was very flirtatious. I think he was flirtatious with a lot of people, and that was probably. He was very. You could not love him.
Yeah.
But my point was, I had a story. I had a Raymond Hutt story that nobody else had, and just like in the first book,
Yes.
I had a story that nobody else had, and I wanted to share it. And
Well,
so,
thank you for sharing a smattering, a teaser of that story with us today. Because now I'm buying 2 books, and I hopefully other people will too. And then I'm gonna like email you later and be like, "Oh my god!" But a lot of what's happened in both of these books intersects with your store, Chicago's Broadway Antique Market,
yes,
and you know, can you describe the market for us? Because right now it sounds like at some point next door there were limousines that would come by, and at some points people they'd show up and you'd make friends and they'd kind of abduct you and take you to Indiana basements. Um,
Yeah,
Sometimes there might be two-headed lambs and vomit on the floor. So there's a
yeah,
lot going on in the
yeah.
imagery that we have so far.
I've painted a blurry picture.
Clear it up
So,
for us.
okay, well, so I'll put it this way. So
Okay.
from 1990 to 1998, my partner Jeff Nelson and I owned Wrigleyville Antique Mall, and that's actually where that's where a lot of the selling dead people's things stories from there, and that which is by the ballpark, and the building's since been torn down. But
Did you
in
call it
Boydstown,
Wham? Did you call
in
it
Chicago,
Wham at the
that was
time?
that was Wham. Yeah, you
Wham.
can see where this is going, Jerome. Very
Oh,
good.
sorry. I didn't mean to take
No, no, no. That's good. Okay, folks, where's he going with this?
it.
Mention Kmart shoppers, something's coming. So then we opened up Broadway Antique Market, which is up in the Edgewater neighborhood. And we'd also seen a lot of our clientele and younger gay people moving north because it was a little more affordable. Again,
Mhm.
when people would write checks, I look at their addresses, and we found
Smart.
this fantastic old furniture store built in 1939, and it was built by the Pacons, which is a wealthy Jewish family, and then they sold it to Mr.
Oh,
Mann, and we bought it from Mr. Mann.
it's like the
Um,
pagans.
the Pacons. No, but they actually made and sold the furniture right there, so they had
Oh,
most of the block.
that's cool.
But their showrooms were kind of in the middle of the block, and that's the building that we're in.
Hmm.
And so we opened up that in 1998. If I fall over at any moment, you'll know why. So and until COVID, we were open 7 days a week since 1990,
Oh my gosh.
barring holidays and attacks of coma.
Sure.
Um, but home to 75 other dealers. It's on 2 floors,
Oh,
and these are all professional dealers. One of them is an appraiser on Antique Roadshow. These are people who do high end Palm Springs shows,
awesome.
mid-century modern shows. These are all professional people and friends. So it's a
Yeah.
real family there, and a number of them had actually come up with us from the first store. You know,
Yeah.
when the,
From
I,
Wham.
from Wham. So we went from Wham to Bam.
There you go.
There you go. Yes, that's your opinion,
I
right?
was like, I don't want to steal his joke, but I'm hearing it. I
No,
think other people
no.
are too. So when you walk into BAM, what do you see?
What do you see? Um, you see, I think really like the best of what my dealers and friends can find.
Hmm.
And so you walk into this Art Deco building, and there's showcases, glass showcases, and there's things that some people may find to be expensive, and then we'll sell a button for a quarter. So
Oh,
it's I don't like using the word mall
okay.
because malls are just you know fizzled. I mean, retail malls, they've got their own problems there. Um, but so I call it a market, but that's just me being playing with words. Um,
Sure.
and then to one side is a fabulous staircase, Art Deco staircase that takes you up to the second floor. It's leopard carpeting, and it's
Ooh.
very much. I want to go back to Mad Men because we were selling this stuff before then, but and they've filmed uh, the TV shows up there,
Oh my gosh.
commercials. It's designed the whole idea that I had was that when I was a kid, you go to Marshall Fields here and you could walk through their design rooms,
Yeah.
right? It was all the furniture they were selling. And I love the idea that you could just walk through these vintage, like vignettes and rooms. And my
That's
partner's
awesome.
brilliant at creating these, and then somebody buys a sofa and there it goes,
Yeah. Okay.
goes lasts for 10 minutes. It looked good. But it's 20,000 square feet. So yeah,
Wow.
it's enormous.
Because
Um,
you had a full town in about the basement of 5,000 square feet.
yeah,
So you got
that was
room
how
for
big that place is. Think about that. It's a
yeah,
quarter of that size. Unbelievable.
yeah.
Again, Okay, I'd love to know what happened to that, but I have the animals, so
I got what I
story.
wanted and I left.
All I want. I wanted left.
But and you mentioned how your partner uh, has these beautiful arrangements of furniture and accessories or what have you, and I really love the way that you kind of give furniture and other items like a second life. The
Oh,
way and this is the way I'm thinking about it, because there's a lot of people with a lot of junk,
yeah.
and it just goes in the landfill or just sits around in the garage. My neighbor has a garage full of stuff. Um, do you like? Are you involved in like reclaiming the nice pieces from the garage? Like you mentioned, you said hi. He said we're gonna go junking. You want to go
Yeah.
junking? So
Yeah.
is that what you call it, junking?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I call it chunky. People go certainly go thrifting,
I don't.
right?
I know hoarders. That is what I know.
Yeah.
And so,
I knew we had something in common.
right, right,
Well, and
right.
on that, let's put this there. So
Hmm.
there are hoarders, and I've been in a number of hoarder houses. I write about hoarder houses. I love the show Hoarders. I think I'm hoping it's one of the more real reality shows on TV.
Sure.
I'm just right. Tell me that it's all I really live for. But when you actually go through these places and then write about them is different.
Mm-hmm.
So I found that intriguing. Like again, like something to explore. But getting ahead of myself. There's those kinds of hoarders, like you're saying, maybe one of your garage neighbors,
Yeah.
right? And then there's high-end hoarders.
Oh.
So that's people who still have a problem, but they
Yeah.
have money,
Yeah.
and it's still the problem though. So they get a chance to, really indulge, uh, and
Yeah.
it's not always good. Except they get really great stuff.
Okay. I'm going way back, and my listeners from Atlanta might remember this. But you can get your notepad out because you might want
Okay,
to investigate
I'm
this.
all ears.
In Atlanta, there is a theater called the Fox Theater. And in the Fox, there is a gentleman who lives there, and his name is they call him the Phantom of the Fox. And he at some point like saved the theater by donating like $1 million or something. And so he got a life lease in the theater. And I won tickets through like a radio contest or something to have dinner with the Phantom of the Fox while
Oh my
Phantom of the
gosh.
Opera was there. I know, and so we go in and we're like just a couple of dumb gays. We got cocktails before we go into this place, and he's got like roses and candelabras and everything, and I was like, what is happening? And it's gorgeous. And he comes in and he has to be in his 80s at the time. And this was like 10 years ago. And he's stooped over, but we're having conversations and he talks about his warehouse, which is where this high end collecting comes from. I think because he had at least one warehouse for his cars. And then, right, and then other property around the city. And now that you've like dredged up this memory, it would have just been full of stuff that there's no way he was ever going to use. And so you would be the person to call.
Oh, I think someone's already gotten there.
Okay, okay, okay.
I'm gonna go out on a rusty limb and say that sounds. See, that's the kind of guy though, just
Yes.
who would, and I'm sure he has an incredible eye
Yeah,
for you. It's not going to be kind of well, yeah, because people can have a lot of money and buy junk.
that's true.
People do it every day, but when they have taste and they have an eye or a theme or a purpose,
Yeah.
you end up with a much better vetted collection of, and
Yeah.
suddenly it's not all that much junk, you know.
Well, you keep that idea. Phantom
that's
of
a
the
great
Fox for
that's a great story. I am
in
going to check into that.
case you ever do decide to write a follow up.
Yeah,
Because it's certainly on the paranormal side of things.
that's that's the character. Uh,
Now, okay, so then do people call you directly and say, "Hey, I've got an aunt or an uncle with too much money and too much stuff. Do you want to come and see what you can get?" Or do you go to estate sales? Are you browsing the paper? Like, how do you get
So
these leads?
so first, yes, we get lots of phone calls.
Mm.
Secondly, we get lots of emails, and that's really, this is an image based industry.
Oh, sure.
Like, what am I looking at? What do you want me? I can't. And honestly, 30 years ago, it was like, I'm not running out to every one of these. I'm glad that I did on a number of them because there's some real surprises that come
Mm.
along. Um, uh, but now I tend to be, we either prefer if we go in before there's that, let the mobs of the public in, or after when they've
Okay.
all left and now it's just let's figure this out. So it kind of depends when we're brought in, and that's up to the people. Um, so uh, I, I think that, I mean, that's basically how how it
Yeah. Sounds like
works.
there's no one way that
No,
things get to you.
and I've got whole lots of tips, for people always, like it's, people don't know how to sell things.
Yeah,
Do not know
that's
how
true.
to sell things. So, um, and I didn't write a book about how to do that. Figure that out. That's very important. Um,
Yes.
and I'm going to start with this one. Just here the topic for the whole thing. Be nice. Be nice to
Mm.
people. If you need to unload whatever, Aunt Ginny's sewing machine, be
Hmm.
nice to them. It will help. It will go to the right person. And
That's
that's
true.
often how I think of these objects as, or, and not denigrating at all, but I do kind of like the comparison, is that, like you said, when you walk into BAM, and what do you see?
Yeah.
Uh, you see all these rescued things, but and an Art Deco cocktail shaker may as well be the most adorable kitten you've ever found on the street, and you
Hmm.
adopt it and you take it home and it's with you, right? Or
Yeah.
the puppy, and it's there. To me, there really is this uh, affectionate connection with objects, and I go back to animals in that you're adopting this thing, you're bringing it into your life, you know. Um, and I'm actually very sincere about that, and
Yeah.
I think that makes a difference, because it's just, I'm just not, I mean, yeah, I'll sell you an ice bucket, but if I know where that ice bucket came from, or know
Hmm.
something about it that's interesting, I will let you know as I put it in the bag. And
Now,
my people will too, and they're just very generous with a small g. It's like it's
sure.
what we should do as we move these things along. And I also really want to give out a shout out, because, and I am shocked, first one to say it, young people get it. Young people are like, I'm not buying new stuff that goes into the landfills.
Yeah.
You know, older people, people my age, uh, going like, where's the dumpster that they can just put it in? They're not necessarily thinking about recycling, and it's not that they're stupid. It might be just that they're lazy. Um,
Hmm.
but young people get it, and I'm thrilled, because that's what's given, I think, this industry like its third bump
Oh, good.
into being accepted as, I mean, it's $1 billion industry. Just
Yeah.
think about all the TV shows that are out there, and
But
so
I mean, even when I was, reading up on you, I was like, oh, yeah, I know people who are going to love this. Like people who want to go thrifting on Saturdays, people who like refuse to buy new. In our neighborhood, we have a Facebook group that's like, buy nothing, this neighborhood buy nothing group. And we just like exchange
that's
things
great.
amongst each other. Yeah. So I
Yeah,
totally follow. I have about one more question before we go to break. Could be long, could be short. I don't know. You mentioned being able to identify when something is worth it, let's say worth it. But you went to school for poetry. So was it Hard Knocks that taught you how to identify things? Is there like a catalog that you look through? Like, how can you identify on site whether or not something is
yeah. That's
worthy of making it to
well,
the market?
that's a good question, and it's a question that I think has evolved. In that,
Mm.
I mean, years ago, people had books and price guides before the internet. We don't use that
Okay, so
expression.
get ready, everybody.
Get ready, everybody. You're on. I remember when it wasn't even a screen. Um, I'm not kidding. Uh, so you looked up things in books. You talked to other people, right? And because people are this can be a real wealth of information, but there wasn't.
Mm,
You didn't have a computer in your pocket to
yeah.
go taking a picture of it, match the image, and and do a search of closed auctions, which is what I tell people to do, and then see what things actually sell for.
Yeah.
So it's that space of time and technology has just changed, right? So I knew a little bit. I mean, I knew a little bit about a lot of stuff and a whole
Sure.
lot of nothing. So, which was maybe a good way to start. And I mean, crazy, but I had my little stint at Second City. It was a great way to learn how to sell things. It's because
Okay.
it's a better communicator. And I was incredibly shy. I am not kidding you. There's a story in Vintage Confidential about sitting around the family dinner table at
Hmm.
6 o'clock, and the wall mounted black rotary phone starts to ring, and none of us would answer it. Who
Because
could
no
be
one
calling?
wanted
Who
to
would be
talk.
calling? Why would anyone be calling us?
Oh no. It must be a wrong number.
And we would argue who's going to answer the phone. I mean, that's how my mother eventually would, but my sister and I,
Wow.
that's how shy we were. I'm not exaggerating. Would happen all the time, and I was always thinking, I wonder who's calling. Just so to get to this point where I think I'm just comfortable with myself and
Yeah.
what I sell and what I do and who I represent and the objects that we move along to the next owner, because we're the temporaries here, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, the objects are much more permanent. So uh, I think
It's
I've
quite a
forgotten.
journey.
Yeah, that's and now I've forgotten what I was talking about.
You know what? You nailed it.
Okay, I was saying those young people keep drifting,
Come on,
recycling.
kids. Let's go thrift. Bam.
Mhm.
We're going to take a quick coffee break. We're going to collect our thoughts, get any refills if necessary, refills if necessary, and be right back.
I apologize. It was noisy here. They're doing tuck pointing. I think they're done. If there
What's
was,
tuck pointing?
oh, they do an exterior work to the outside of a building,
Oh,
like
okay.
like the brickwork.
I was like, maybe he's near the river. Maybe it's a tugboat.
It's a drag queen expression.
It go- Ba-dum,
That's
boom.
another
That was
show.
good. That was good.
Thank you. That's why I'll only do one show a day.
That's fair. Welcome back, everybody. I'm here with Duane Cerny. He's giving me all of the good stories and good jokes over our coffee break. And so I was like, oh, we got to get back. We got to get back and save some for the audience, Duane. As we come kind of to a close, I do like to ask, what's one thing that you want people to take away from our conversation that they can take back in their lives, or one thing you want to share with everybody? The floor is yours.
I think this is a wonderful platform in
Mhm.
that when I can meet someone, such as yourself, um, and everybody has this opportunity to do this every day, everywhere. Really, if you think about it,
Yeah,
talking to somebody who's not being starting up a conversation with someone who's on the bus,
sure.
right? Or you're waiting in line at the bank, uh, and it's really about experiencing people, which we don't do enough of. We didn't do enough of it pre-pandemic, and the pandemic
Mm-hmm.
has really separated us now. Like, oh my God, you don't want to get too close to anybody. But the thing is, there's people are such treasures. That's what life
Yes.
is about. And you want to experience. And I'm someone who sells treasures and affordable treasures, hopefully for the most part. Um, but it's so it really comes down to, and it's really maybe a bit corny. I write about it in the book, but it's treasuring one another, and it's
Mm,
treasuring a stranger, because meeting new people, it opens up so many things. They can tell you about a movie they just saw, or they tell you a story that's something weird that happened to them yesterday, and
yeah.
whatever. It makes your life more interesting to you.
Agreed. Agreed. Could not agree more. So I'm in Minnesota now, and it's a very cold place. And the Midwesterners here are kind of known for being clicky. And I don't think that's an accurate description. I think they just wait for you to talk to them first. Because, you know,
Exactly.
at this point, now that I'm like a professional conversationalist, I do feel like, okay, it's probably my job to initiate the conversation with people. If we're in an elevator or if we're, all in the parking lot at the same time or whatever. Like, what do I have to fear about talking to someone and having a conversation?
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And so,
Uh,
I was at the gym before this, talking with some new people with my trainer. And it's not always marketing. It's not always telling them about the podcast, but today it was successful. I met a new mom. I met a grad school student who doesn't think it's right that she uh, has to have this unpaid internship as a grad school student to succeed in her field. And I was learning a lot while lifting weights and just letting
right.
people express themselves and giving them that platform, even just amongst like the gym mats, to share what's going on in their lives. 100% people are a treasure.
And that's, yeah. I mean, you've demonstrated in multitudes by this morning. I mean, yeah, yeah. But what's funny is it's no big idea. It's just there. And
Yes.
like the worst thing that can happen is somebody just ignores you.
Yes.
It's fine. But you always look for the time when it's just natural
Yeah.
that comes to that. I'll do a very quick story as to kind of relates to this. So years ago on the CTA bus, packed bus, going downtown to go to work as paralegal, this guy, old guy in this rumpled suit, plops down next to me, right, and just I can't do it, and starts talking about all this. I remember when this used to be the
Yeah.
trolley and not the bus. And I'm like, okay, of course this one's going to sit next to me, right? But he goes along, and I'm going, his voice sounds really familiar. Why does his
Oh.
voice sound? And his stories were pretty darn interesting, right? And it wasn't until about a day later I realized that had been Studs Terkel, and Studs Terkel is who are listening here again, a huge persona in American literature. Talk about
Hmm.
working, and I mean somebody who's just he's the Upton Sinclair of the 20th century,
Oh, there
I
you
would
go.
say. And here I'm thinking, here's this just this old kind of rumpled suit. Um, uh,
Huh.
and that was it. Oh my gosh! I mean, I totally missed that opportunity because I didn't really say much. I just listened.
Sure.
Again, you learn a lot from listening, and I can bring them back here and tell you that is like a best example of just because everybody in that way, everybody's a star.
Yeah.
All these everybody is, at least they are in your mind. It's
Agreed.
kind of sweet.
Uh, Amazing, Duane. Going from the person at the dinner table who is afraid to pick up the phone to the person who will get in the car with a celebrity and drive to the middle of nowhere and buy those taxidermied animals to now here. Let me not skip over best-selling author of one book, possibly another one coming up. You never know what'll happen. And then coming here and letting us know, sharing us about the treasures that other people are. Brilliant conversation,
Uh,
Duane.
and meeting you,
Brilliant.
Jerome. That's today's treasure that we share.
And the Phantom of the Fox. I
Oh,
made him write it down, everybody. I
yeah,
made him
yeah.
write it down.
Checking that out.
Okay, so everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. I do want you to learn more about Dwayne's book, Selling Dead People's Things. You can go to sellingdeadpeoplesthings.com. And I want you to learn more about BAM, Broadway Antique Market, at bamchicago.com. But Dwayne, are there any other links that people need to be aware of?
Always things going on.
Yeah.
I last week I launched a YouTube channel, so it's just Duane Scott Cerny, exactly as you see there, just after the words YouTube. And
Oh,
I
fun.
do these little clips about objects in history and things like just that we're talking about. That's also on Instagram and well, TikToks. I've been doing TikToks, which are crazy as shit. Yeah.
I haven't figured out TikToks yet, so I'm
No,
gonna need to
I
get
haven't,
some
I haven't
tips from you.
figured out expletives apparently. Um, uh, but those are great fun, and uh, yeah, you'll kind of get a feel for the books as well.
Oh,
So
wonderful. I'm
yeah,
excited to follow you on YouTube in particular because we actually do have a TV show that evolved from this podcast, Bottomless Coffee with Jerome. And so we can be YouTube
well,
friends.
there we go.
Yeah,
Just
there you
it
go.
was meant to be.
And we're right in Minneapolis, so if you ever make it up here, just let me know. You can be on.
Finally, an invitation.
There, you know.
I worked for it, Jerome. You got to admit. Don't tell me.
Very well done.
You,
Very
you
well
answer that
done.
later.
But pack up the U-Haul. Come on up to Minneapolis.
Come on down.
We'll check out some stuff. Thank you so much for spending the time. I'm going to buy some books right
Yay.
after this conversation. Yeah. Thanks, Dwayne.
Thank you.
And thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. See you next time.